What's up, Average Joes? Today, I have an original tag for you, and that is the Year in Review tag. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for coming and watching, liking, subscribing, doing all the great things. Today, I have an original tag for you. I've been wanting to create my own for a little while. I've had some ideas that I've bounced around, but since this is kind of my wheelhouse of it's kind of like planning and the priority lists and looking back and how you're gonna change going forward is kind of like what I like to do a lot on here. I wanted to make a year in review tag that actually comes out at the end of the year. And basically what this tag is looking back at this year of reading, some good things, some highlights, some takeaways. And I think it will help, especially going forward for planning next year. So this will come out sometime in mid-December. And I think it will help people even if you don't even make this tag for your own video, to answer your own questions and think about, okay, maybe this can affect my next year of reading. So I plan on doing this each year because it is good to look back at the entire year. Sometimes, you think of books that you read back in March and it feels like 2 years ago that you've read it, or you see a pattern that's starting to develop with your reading that you can carry over to the next year. So the first one is, how were your goals? How do you feel about your reading from the year for your goals? This isn't necessarily a strict goals or a books check-in, but how do you feel about your reading for this year? My numbers are definitely up. Not that I care. I never set a book reading goal amount each year, but my numbers are definitely the highest that they have been. I'm over 70. I'm in the mid 70s, I think, right now. But as far as my priority tiered list that I always do each year, I make different tiers of books that I want to get to. And there is a definite trickle down to where my priority ones have the most books checked off. My secondary ones have the second most. The next one have a few, and then it just kind of trickles down. So I'd say I did pretty good on my priority tier list. So my goals have been good, although I've had to skip one or two of my top ones, but those have just shifted to next year, which is good to look at for now. So it's good to shift to next year, and they're on the top of those lists. Next one, a new favorite author. Now you would have had to discover this year, first time reading an author this year, not in the past. So all these questions will be from this year currently. So if you're doing it in 2021, then it would be just from 2021. And new favorite author I discovered this year would have to be Adrian Tchaikovsky and Richard Nell. So Richard Nell, I've only read the Ash and Sand trilogy, but I do want to read more from him. Pretty excited to. But Adrian, I have only been reading the Shadow of the Apt series. I'm on book 4 right now, and he just has so much out there. And as I was going through some of my wish lists, I've seen a bunch of his books on my wish list. He has a diverse amount of books out there. I've gotten some other things from him. So yeah, Adrian Tchaikovsky, I think, is going to be a new favorite author and one that I'm really, really excited to read more from. Who is a new booktuber or person that you discovered? Who's a booktuber that you discovered this year that you've consumed or watched the most? And the two I would say is Leslie from Nerd Narrative and Lauren from Paperback Empire. I believe I discovered them right early on in this year, but I think I watched just about everything they come out with, and I've both pulled recommendations and books from them and have read. So those are two great ones to check out that I'll try and link below. What is a new genre that you read this year that you tried out? And that would be horror for me. I had never read horror until this year, but there was a reading thing going on in July, and I decided to read Patience of a Dead Man and some others. Very, very good book. I guess Nightmare Land would count as horror as well, but horror is one that I'm still kind of wading in slowly. I don't want to like jump straight into. I mean, even though I loved book 1 of Patience of a Dead Man, I can't bring myself to read book 2 because the lady in it was super creepy. But I'm excited to read it. I just don't know when I'm going to get to it. What is a favorite book you would recommend to someone? It's not necessarily what's your top book of the year, but what is a top book that you would recommend to someone? I know Spirits of Vengeance is going to be a top favorite for me, but I would just say Immortal Techniques in general, because those are standalones, although you should start with Never Die. And then if I would just a complete one-off book, I would say Recursion by Blake Crouch, 100%. That was fantastic. I recommended it to a few people, and they absolutely loved it as well. New favorite series that you completed this year. So I guess this is kind of elusive if you started this year, but 100% you have had to have completed it this year, maybe start to finish, but completed series that you read this year. Ash and Sand and Red Rising, those were both in my top 3 of my top 10 series of all time lists. And they both had books on the top 10 books of all time list. So Ash and Sand and Red Rising, I read those two trilogies this year. I've only read the first 3 books of Red Rising. I haven't gone on to the second 3 books yet, because I don't know when book 6 is going to come out, and I'm just waiting for that to drop to start those. What is a future reread from this year? So, as you know, I do not reread books. I have never read a single book, and I don't know if I plan on it, but if I were to reread any of the ones that I read this year, Mortal Techniques would be it. That would be Spirits of Vengeance and Pawn's Gambit. I read this year, and the reason why is, even though they're each standalones, there are so many connections between the books because it's all takes place in the same world. But picking up on all of those connections, you might forget some. There might be very very subtle. So I think it'd be cool to see if you can pick up on even more connections through a reread. Biggest surprise read of the year: Nightmareland Chronicles. I've only read the first 2. They are just novellas. I added the third one to my Kindle just earlier this week. Very, very good. Absolutely captivated me, pulled me in. You can consume these probably in a day because they just suck you in so much. And the story is it's so good. They are all on Kindle Unlimited. I believe the last one either recently came out or is going to come out early next year. I don't know when, but Nightmareland was definitely a big surprise to me. What is a book that is stuck in your head from this year? And I'm going to go with 2 on this one. Fiber Fueled is one that is a nonfiction that I read about basically eating a lot of fiber, and that has been been in my head because of nutrition and stuff. And then as far as other ones, Shadow of the Apt. And this one is because I've been going through read-alongs. I've been on 2 live streams on Alan's channel. I'm always on the Discord talking about it. But because it's centered around insects, anytime I see an insect, I just think about Shadow of the Apt and what that insect is, and how their certain ancestor art would be, and just dumb stuff like that, because insects are everywhere. So that's definitely one that's stuck in my head. What are some books that you wish you read, wish you got to? And the 2 main ones will be any more books in the Sebastian St. Cyr series, and any more books in the Star Wars EU expanded universe. I read about 4 books from the Star Wars universe this year, but I read 0 from Sebastian. I was supposed to read more of the Star Wars books. I originally planned to do 1 per month. That fell off the wheels real quick. And Sebastian, I just didn't pick up any this year. Both of those series are just like very, very long that you can throw in at any time. So I could have thrown in them at any time, but I just packed in so much reading and this mood reading that didn't work out. They are super easy to throw in. And I definitely want to make this priority for next year because I need to catch up on those. And I would like to do especially more Star Wars EU universe videos. What's a book you wish you didn't read this past year? And that is going to be Man in the High Castle. I mentioned this in a few videos. That book was about nothing. It didn't explain much of anything. Nothing really happened. There wasn't a plot. It was just a hypothetical what if scenario, and he just went just a lot of paranoia delusions that he was writing about. What is a book that personally affected you or has had an impact on you and your life, whether it's any sort of impact on your life? And that would be Fiber Fueled. I already mentioned because we're big into nutrition, so I've definitely made a lot of nutritional changes, some nutritional changes from that, and I learned a lot. But the other one would be Art of Impossible. That one was a very, very good book as well. And I've talked about both of these in some of my nonfiction reads. And yeah, they are specifically nonfiction, but that's kind of the point of nonfiction to me, is to actually have some sort of impact and positive effect to what you do in your life. As far as fiction goes, I don't think of any of those books have had much of an impact, at least like in a major way. Lessons, and this is the final question. That would be lessons learned to apply for next year. So what are some lessons learned this year they can apply to next year? And for me, it has to do with buddy reads. And for the longest time, actually, I think this year was the first time I actually joined buddy reads. So my lesson would be to actually join more buddy reads, or like to make sure I have some set out. I know that some people it's going to be the opposite, because I hear all the time of people complaining that they have like 3, 4, 5 buddy reads a month, and I definitely don't do that. I kind of stick to my own schedule, do my own thing, but I do like having buddy reads. And for the lesson to learn to apply for other people as well, that you can kind of meet in the middle, is schedule out your buddy reads in chunks, and then have at least 1 month in between buddy read chunks to where it's just your reading, no buddy reads. You just have a completely free month of whether it's mood reading, catching up, all of those things. Because our buddy reads are fun and it's good to read with people, but I feel like if you pile on too many, it's just going to be way too stressful. And it's not hard for me to say no to things and to just do my own thing. But one thing I would like to do is plan out buddy reads to do throughout the year, whether it's a series, you know, one book per month, or just like, hey, we're going to read this other one in this month. So that's going to be mine. So if you want to get on Somebody Reads, I have some series that I might propose. I have a video coming out of books that I do want to get to. So we can, if we start some dialogue now, we can start planning them out for next year. But one thing that I do is I don't get too many Buddy Reads. So there is my year in review original tag. Now, please do this. If you would like to do this, go ahead, feel free. I'm not going to personally tag anybody just because I've never tagged people. And I honestly don't know how you even tag somebody on YouTube, because normally when you put the @ symbol and write somebody's name, it'll autofill, but it doesn't do that. So I don't know if I'm even going to be tagging the right person, but I'm going to put this out there. I'll try and announce it in a few Discords for people to do. So if anybody wants to do this tag, please do. Share it around, feel free. And I think once again, it's a good way to reflect on the year and take these lessons learned moving forward. So let me know what you think, and let's talk more down in the comments. And hope everyone has had a great reading year and is excited for next year.